Hello, hi, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the books that I've read recently. For the past couple months, I've kind of fell off of not reading completely. I've still been reading, just obviously not as much as I would want to. I've been incredibly busy. My schedule has been all over the place, and kind of fell into a little bit of a reading slump, I guess. And other things have been taking up a lot of my time, such as playing a copious amount of Guitar Hero. So I have been getting back on track with my reading, which is great. I'm really excited for what I'm reading and things that I plan on reading very soon. Really excited for that. And because I haven't been reading as much, that's why I didn't post like a November wrap up and like a December wrap up, just because I felt like I didn't have enough to talk about because I probably only read like a book or two. So yeah, unfortunately that is the case. We're back on track now. So we're going to be talking about the latest books I've read, and by latest, like the past couple months. But that's life. Let's go. So the first book that I want to talk about is Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. This book was great. I loved this book. I know a lot of people didn't really like this book, but I did, so I thought it was really good. I'm not going to get too in-depth with my thoughts and stuff because I actually made a reading vlog dedicated to this book, so I will put a link to that in the description or somewhere on the video or whatever if you want to go watch that and see all my thoughts. But Mexican Gothic, if you don't know, is about a young woman who, her and her father receive a letter from her cousin who is living with her husband and his family and like their family home, and she's supposedly sick. Yeah, allegedly. And when they receive this letter, it gives them room for concern. They're like, what the fuck is wrong with her? So her father sends, our main character, her father sends her to her cousin to basically scope it out, figure out what's wrong with her. This is basically told like a haunted house story and stuff like that. I mean, it's not entirely just that, but it's told in such a way that the house is really its own character, like other haunted house stories. The story is completely driven pretty much by the house and what goes on in the house and the structure of the home and just elements of the house. That's what the story is about. And if you're the kind of person who doesn't really enjoy that kind of thing, you're probably not going to like this book. And I think that's where this book kind of fell flat for a lot of people. This book is very strongly driven by development of the setting, and some people don't really like that. I do, when it's done in a certain way. Sometimes I feel like in books, if the setting isn't 100% significant, I guess, to the development of the plot, that's where I get bored. But the setting in Mexican Gothic is 100% significant in developing the plot of the story, which is what made it more interesting to me. I honestly was not bored at any point in this book. I thought it was super interesting the entire time. There's so many mushrooms. It's very random, but there's so many mushrooms. I thought it was great. I think it's great. I just thought it was really, there's like a bunny hair on my mouth and I don't want it there, and okay, it's gone. I just had such a good time, like, reading about the structure of the house and like how it's built and how it's so old and it's supposed to be like rotting basically, and it's like decaying, and there's like, it's humid and gross, it's moldy, like all of this stuff. But I thought it was really interesting how you're reading about it and it's supposed to be this like rundown, nasty, rotting, decrepit building, but at the same time there's a really big element of like mystery and ooh, it's like a big ass mansion, but it's like gross, you know? So it's like this really well done mesh of ew and ah put together. I really enjoyed it. Don't remember what I gave it on Goodreads though, so we're gonna figure that out. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. I actually, when I finished it, I kind of went back and forth with 4 and 5 stars and just eventually settled on 4.5 because I really enjoyed it the entire time I was reading it. But what made me want to lower my rating was, well, not just this, but this was like kind of a big factor. The last 2 or 3 pages or so, I did not care for. I mean, this isn't really like a spoiler. I just thought they were corny. I thought it was corny and I didn't need it. I thought it was unnecessary to the story. I didn't think the story as a whole needed it, and I personally just didn't like it. I don't know. I don't want to say too much about literally the last 2-3 pages because that's shitty and spoilery. But basically, I can see where some people would like it. I personally just didn't. I thought it was unnecessary. I didn't need those last I didn't need those last 2-3 pages. But that alone was not enough to make me be like, oh god, fuck this book, you know? It didn't completely spoil my entire reading experience. I was just kind of like, did you really need to go there though? Like, did we really need to go here? Like, I didn't really want to get here. But it's fine, you know? It's fine. At the end, 4.5 stars. Really loved it. It was so much fun. It was so fucking gross. It was great. Reading this made me realize how much I honestly really enjoy like haunted house stories. I really liked Haunting of Hill House. I haven't read The Haunting of Bly Manor, but I saw the show and I have the book, so I do plan on reading it very soon. And I really enjoyed Mexican Gothic, so if anybody has some haunted house book type situation, let me know, because I would love to read more of that kind of thing. And yeah, that was Mexican Gothic. Alright, so the next book that I read recently is The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks. You know, for a book that is this short, it definitely took me well over a month to finish this, and I'm not even sorry about it, you know? I don't even care. This book, if you have not read it or seen the movie, I had seen the movie before reading this, so I had no idea. But for those that don't know, this book is about 2 people that like dated when they were teenagers, were separated for some time, and then are reunited in adulthood. I don't want to say like too much, because I mean honestly I feel like you say too much and it's kind of like spoiling the whole situation, so I'm not going to say more than that. But that's basically what this is. This felt like Wattpad. Just straight up Wattpad. That's what this felt like. It really took me back to all of the like late nights in middle school that I would spend like under the covers with phone in hand just reading Wattpad until like 4 a.m. It's really what this took me back to. Not only did the writing feel like Wattpad, but like the characters felt like Wattpad. They were just very cookie cutter, very boring, did not care. There was no spice anywhere. While I was reading this, it was really interesting to note that it's very clear that this is a book written by a man for women, you know? It was really interesting reading this book and like regardless of that, because like I said, the characters were so fucking boring. Like there was no spice, they were so fucking cookie cutter, and I was like, oh my god, this is so lame. I guess, like, the guy, love interest, Noah, he is, like, every middle-aged mom's, like, dream, okay? He's, like, strong and muscular. He does, like, manual labor. I don't know. He knows how to cook. He's sweet, but he's also strong. And the cherry on top, he likes poetry. What? Like, where? Where do you find a dude like that? In a Nicholas Sparks book, you know? And not only does he like poetry, he reads poetry out loud to, like, people. I mean, not people, but, like, Allie, the love interest. And then we have Allie. She's, like, every dude's dream. I mean, I guess. Not really. The thing about Allie is she's not necessarily every dude's dream, but this book is targeted towards women. So she's like what middle-aged moms would consider like a pretty sweet girl, and that's it. That's literally her whole personality. She has nothing else going for her, except she likes to paint, but good for her, you know? This book talks about her liking to paint probably like 5 times, maybe 4. Like, I have no idea. We don't know. That's like, it doesn't matter. You could have taken that out of this book and it would not have changed a thing. It would not matter. She is blonde. I'm pretty sure she has blue eyes. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember. It mentioned her having long legs at some point. It mentioned her being skinny at one point. I'm pretty sure. Like, she's white. You know, how much more basic could a character be? She really has no personality outside of that. She's a sweet, pretty girl. That's it. I mean, this isn't like a spoiler necessarily, but like, this woman has cheated in 2 of her relationships. Like, okay, alright, you know, that's a thing. This was just not my favorite. It's not what I thought it was going to be. The movie was so much better than the book, and I have never said that before. Never have I said the movie is better than the book. I don't watch a lot of movies, gonna be honest. I went through a phase where I did watch a lot of movies, but now in my life, for the past, honestly, probably 5 years, I don't watch a lot of movies. So most of the movies that I watch are honestly booked movie adaptations, and pretty much every single time, I believe that the book is better. Just because, I mean, the movie is never going to be able to have as much information as in the book, and I personally just enjoy reading more, so naturally, I'm going to enjoy the book more than the movie. That's just how that works. If you like to watch movies more, you're gonna like the movie more. That's just how that is. I don't think the debate on whether books or movies are better needs to be that crazy. I think everybody can just like what they like and move on. This is not about that. But what it is about is the movie for this book. It's way better than this book. Like I said, I've never said that before until I watched this movie. And I was like, wow, this movie's much better than the book. And the thing is, I didn't think that this book was bad. I thought it was okay, just okay. And the movie, I thought, made this book better. There were events that happened in the book that bothered me, and characters' actions and reactions to things, if you know, you know, that bothered me because I was like, okay, if this happened in my life, I'd be a lot more angry than this man right here. Or if this happened in my life, I'd be a little bit more upset. I'd probably do more than just this. And I mean, that's another thing too. It's like this Allie bitch, she has no fucking personality, but for some reason, the men in her life are just like, whatever makes you happy. Oh, if that's what you want. No, that would never happen in real life. I mean, obviously this is fiction. But at the same time, it has to reflect reality, at least in some way, and that would not happen. It would not happen. The events that happen in this book and the way that the men in her life react to her actions, no, it would not happen that way in real life. Someone's ass would have gotten beat, and that is all I'm gonna say. That's it. And the movie did a much better job of, portraying what would be a more realistic, stream of events that would have occurred from her actions. And I appreciated that, where in the book, it was just dumb, I gave this 3 stars in the end, because like I said, it was honestly just okay. Throughout the whole book, I was honestly going back and forth from 2 and 3, and by the end of it, I was like, you know what, I'll give it 3, because like I said, it felt like Wattpad. The first half just felt like Wattpad, and the last half was just sad. I felt like it was sad. It made me tear up this much. So I gave it 3 stars. Whatever. It was alright. The movie made me cry, but the book, my tear ducts were like, hey! And then they were like, eh. And that's that. I read it and I was like, great. I don't ever have to read this again. Do I plan on reading more Nicholas Sparks? Yes, but not because I enjoyed this and I want to read more of his books, but because I want to understand why people like them so much. I want to understand why when I go to a used bookstore and I go to the Nicholas Sparks section, he has 50 books there. Is that because so many people like his books and so many people are buying them? Or is that because everybody doesn't like his books, so everybody is selling them to used bookstores? I want to know that. I have The Last Song by Nicholas Sparks. I actually bought The Last Song on accident because I looked at it and for some reason I thought it was this one. I read The Last Song and everything, my brain was like, The Notebook. And I bought it. A week later, I was like, wait a minute. That does not say The Notebook. I'm gonna read that one at some point in my life. Maybe it'll be better. I have no idea. But this one was just okay. And that's that. That is The Notebook. The last book that I am going to talk about today is The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice. This is the 2nd book in the Vampire Chronicles series. This book took me so long to finish, but I gave it 5 stars. It took me so long to finish, but that wasn't the book's fault. It was honestly my fault. But I thought it was really good. I thought it was great. I'm not going to say too much because this is the 2nd book in a series. Spoilers and all that jazz. But as we know from Interview with the Vampire, we have Louis, who was the main vampire, giving the interview, and he talks about another vampire in his life named Lestat, who is the vampire that turned him into a vampire. I just said vampire like 1,000 times, but we're gonna move on. This book is about Lestat, and I'm not going to explain exactly what he's doing or why, because, again, this is the second book in a series, but for the majority of this book, we get a lot of backstory on Lestat, which I particularly enjoyed. I love backstory. I need backstory. Literally in every book I read, I'm like, but why? How did we get here? You know? When I watch a movie, I'm like, but what happened before this? Like, how did we end up here? And that's what I got with this. Because that's how I felt with Interview with the Vampire. I was like, but what about him? Like, what about his story? Like, how did he turn into a vampire? Where did he come from? And I got those answers here. And I loved them. They were great. So much backstory to Lestat's life, but not even just his life. So much backstory to other characters that come into, like, his life. We get their backstory as well. We get, like, the vampire lore in Anne Rice's vampire world. We get, like, the history of the vampires within the Vampire Chronicles, like, the first vampires, like, it goes way back, and it was really enjoyable. There's a lot in this book. The very beginning and the very end were pretty corny, pretty cheesy, but I still enjoyed it. I didn't think it was corny to the point where I was like, ew, I'm having secondhand embarrassment, I'm cringing. It was cheesy to where I was like, what the fuck? Why is this what she picked? You know, like, it was just cheesy in the sense that I was like, why is this what her mind decided to do with this story? Because it isn't what my mind would have done. But I still liked it a lot. Clearly, I gave it 5 stars. So, yes. I'm really excited to continue with the series. I don't think I'm going to read The Queen of the Damned, which is the 3rd book, necessarily very soon from now. Wow, I said that terribly. I'm going to give myself a vampire break. Not just a Vampire Chronicles break, but a vampire break. And I think that's why it took me so long to get through this book. Because I love vampires. Everybody knows I love vampires. Like, I love vampires so much. Anything involving vampires I will be interested in. But I feel like when I read this, I had just been reading so much vampire stuff and watching, like, the Vampire Diaries, and it was just so much vampire in my brain that that's why it took me so long to read this and finish it. So I think I just need to give myself a little bit of vampire break. I might read the 3rd book maybe next month or the month after, but it is such a long series that I'm just going to give myself time to get through it. I just want a little bit of a vampire break, but after finishing this one, I'm really excited to get to Queen of the Damned and finish the whole series because there's just so much to this series to unpack, you know? There's just so much that goes on. And like I've said countless times on this channel, if you like vampires, I highly recommend the Vampire Chronicles. I will admit, I will be the first one to admit that it is not for everybody. It's not for everybody. It's really not. But it is for me. So those were just some of the books that I've read lately. Like I said, I'm getting back on track with my reading. I'm really excited with the things that I've been reading, the things that I plan on reading this month. Now that this year has started, able to get my schedule back in order and everything. Definitely getting out of my little reading slump that I kind of had at the end of 2020. Again, if you know any haunted house books or books that would fall into a category with books like The Haunting of Hill House or The Turn of the Screw or Haunting of Bly Manor and Mexican Gothic, I would love it. I want to read as much haunted house type stories as possible. I love them. That concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see y'all next time.